Hi everyone, in this week's episode of Wine 01, we're going to review how to assess wine quality. I'm Nicolas Seltzer, wine expert, and let's go into our topic. So we're going to review the three-step process to assess the quality of a given wine. Remember last week we discussed the importance of these little berries that have very little pulp and lots of skin, because in the skins is where the color, the aromas, and the flavors are. And the three-step process to assess the wine quality is visuals, number one, then aromas, and then taste. So the smaller the berry, our experience for the three-step process to assess the wine quality is going to be a more interesting one. So in visuals, we're looking for a wine that is clean. We're going to be looking to the color. We're going to be looking to the edges. Normally the edges have a different color or intensity than the wine in the center. This is all information that is going to allow us to understand the quality of a wine. So for example, we have these 3 glasses of white wine. The one in the left, it's a color that is very typical to Sauvignon Blanc. The one in the middle is the color of possibly Chardonnay. And then on the right, we will have a much more intense yellow color, which we could easily assume that this is a late harvest, for example, that has a very deep yellow color. In red wines, the one on the left would be a simple wine, as we discussed last week. This is a basic classic wine from this winery that we had made the example in Napa, California. The wine in the center will be a more complex wine with more intensity. It's a very violet color, and we know that violet is the color of young wine. We can have violet color, very intense because it's very complex, or we can have violet color, very simple, which means that it's a young wine, but it's not so complex. And then on the right hand side, we will have a wine that is complex, more intense, and it's a wine that has a little bit more time, because as the wine evolves into more, I would say, orange, kind of like brick color, it means that the wine is evolving and has more time. It's a wine from earlier vintages. So the color is something that is going to give us a lot of information about wine, and we always need to check that the wine is clean. There's nothing wrong and nothing strange inside the glass of wine or the bottle. In aromas, we are trying to detect some of these 200 plus aromas that are present in wine. For example, in a red wine, we're going to find very typical, aromas of red berries, cranberries, blackberries, raspberries, strawberries. Any of these aromas are very typical to red wine. For example, Cabernet Sauvignon, Napa, or a Cabernet Sauvignon in Maipo Valley, they would be normally very intense, especially in blackberries. So I had this question asked many times throughout the years that I've been involved in the industry. When do you guys add these flavors, actually aromas, to the wine during the winemaking process? And it is not like that. The wine has what is called phenols. Phenols is a chemical structure that is present in wine, and there are phenols for blackberries, phenols for strawberries, for cranberries, for raspberries. These phenols are present in wine in the same way that are present in the cranberry or the strawberry, in lesser quantity, but they're present. So someone that lived, for example, in the farm will have a threshold that will allow him to detect these aromas in a much more easy way. Someone that has lived in, I don't know, New York City, it will be possibly because of the experience in life, has not been involved with these aromas as often as someone in the farm, that the threshold is going to be much more difficult to detect it. So one of the things and interesting about wine is that the more that we taste, the more that we assess the quality of a wine, we start experiencing these aromas and flavors, and we remember them in our brain, and we start to detect these phenols present, so we can actually live and have the experience of detecting these different phenols in the wine. So a threshold is trained so that we can check and we can find more aromas and flavors in a given wine. In taste, we have 5. Wine only has 4. The experience of the palate of taste, it's only 5. It's sweet, bitter, salty, and acid. And then umami. Umami is not present in wine, so in wine, the experience and the sensations of the taste are either sweet, bitter, salty, or acid. So honey, sweet. Cabbage, I understand that cabbage, if you cut it with the wrong knife, you will have a lot of bitterness. I have experienced that before. Then salty, like some fries, and then acid for lemons. So why do we say that a wine has the taste of strawberries, blackberries, when in reality our palate can only taste these sensations of sweet, bitter, salty, and acid? This is because there's something called retronasal. Retronasal is the connection between the mouth, the palate, and the nose. So in reality, when we're tasting blackberries, strawberries, or any of these very common flavors to wine, in reality is that the connection between the nose and the mouth is giving us the sensation that we're tasting these flavors, but in reality they are not. These are aromas, and flavors is only sweet, bitter, salty, and acid. But this combination and this connection, retronasal, is giving us the experience of this whole taste, aromas that we experience when we're tasting wine. So for our recap of today, we would like to remember the following concepts. So number 1 is the 3-step process, which is visuals, aromas, and flavors. And for visuals, it is always recommended to use a white background. You can use a sheet of paper or a white cloth in the table. It will be sufficient to having light, and then against a white background, you can always check the wine in a much better way. The presence of these phenols, chemical structures in aromas, are really important, because this is where we are smelling all these very interesting aromas, 200 plus, that wine has present. And the detection threshold is really important, because in the next episode we're going to talk about the different aromas that you can find in different wines, and this is going to be, of course, linked to this detection threshold that we can train as we go and we experience different wines. And this connection of the palate and the nose, which is the retronasal, that is giving us this whole concept and experience of tasting wines. So this is the episode of this week. Don't forget to give me a like. Please share the video with your friends. This is interesting, for people to learn more about wine. And subscribe to the channel so you can receive my new episodes every week. So cheers, and see you next week.